Good evening. Good evening. Okay, thank you. It's January 2024. There are a lot of things that are going to be happening this year, and this is going to kick us off for a lot of good things that are going to happen in 2024. My name is Michael Schutt. I am the Regional Director of Lambda Legal Southern Regional Office. I use he, him pronouns, and I am grateful that you all are here this evening with us at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. So I gotta be really honest with you that I didn't sleep very much last night. And I didn't sleep last night for two big reasons. Number one, I met with the Lambda Legal Atlanta Leadership Council leadership team for dinner last night, and they are such an inspiring group of folks. So anybody on the ALC in general, please raise your hand and wave. We have members of the Atlanta Leadership Council. These are folks that do great work in the community on behalf of Lambda Legal. We're grateful. And I was so inspired that my brain was just racing. But the other thing that kept me up was the fact that yesterday, as we were stuffing name tags and taking care of all the final details, it finally dawned on me that we were hosting this exhibit. And that might seem odd, but we've been so entrenched in all of the administrative tasks and getting ready to see you all that I didn't have time to sit back and think to myself, what an important thing this really is. And it is for a couple of reasons. One, Lambda Legal turned 50 years old last year, 1973. And this exhibit helps chronicle all of Lambda Legal's work in the United States that impacted all of our lives. And it's really important for us to take this traveling exhibit, which was first launched in November in New York, and this is the next stop. It will then go to LA and Chicago and Dallas and Washington, DC. And it's important for us to tell the story. So that's one important thing. The second important thing is that Lambda Legal had the opportunity to partner with the American LGBTQ Museum in New York. And so they helped design this beautiful exhibit and partnered with us. So the folks from the American LGBTQ Museum, if you can raise your hand. These folks have been working really hard and will continue to work after the exhibit leaves Atlanta. So thank you for your partnership and your patience. We also had the opportunity to partner with the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia. And as a member of the LGBTQ+ Institute at the center, and someone who sat on the lawn just a couple of years ago as they broke ground for this beautiful building, it was so exciting to think that we were going to partner with this beautiful organization to host this exhibit. So thank you for hosting us. And let's give a round of applause to all the staff that are taking care of us and everybody who's worked so hard to make this happen. There are a lot of things behind the scenes that had to happen to make tonight happen, and we know. So if people look a little wore out, this is why. And yesterday, as we were starting to prepare, the other thing that really inspired me and got my brain going was when we were going through the list of people that are going to be here tonight. And I saw former Lambda Legal employees, I saw community leaders, activists, etc., that were going to be in this space for us tonight. And so with very little sleep right now, I stand here in the present as we're going to be talking about the past, and we're going to be preparing for the future. And we're really excited because tomorrow we're actually hosting a half-day symposium here that is going to be diving a little deeper into our past, and with our partners from Georgia Equality, going to help look at the legislative session that is barreling at us next week. And so we're really grateful for that partnership, and Jeff Graham is right back there. We know that the staff, and we have some other folks that do that. So tonight we're going to do I'm going to have a couple folks do some other introductions for you. We have a beautiful panel that we'll have, and then we'll invite you to not only see the exhibit upstairs, but also to tour the entire center. If you've never been here before, who has not been here? By show of hands, who's never been to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights? So you all need to explore the entire center tonight before you leave. It's just a very beautiful space. But what I want you to do is I want you to take in the history that we have up there, but, and I'm going to repeat this at the very end, I want you to do one other thing. For folks that have heard me speak before, you're going to laugh at me because you've heard this before. There are so many amazing people in this room that you need to get to know them. And so wash away the awkwardness, walk up to them and say, Michael Shutt told me I had to come over and talk to you. And this is really awkward. Please, will you do me the privilege and share your story with me? Okay? So that is one of your charges tonight. Wash the awkwardness away and go forth and do that. With that, I'm going to pass over the mic for a minute to two of our fearless leaders that helped bring all of this together before we start our panel. And the first one is Kama Pierce, who is the Chief Program Officer. I got that right. See, I got it right the first time. Okay. And Kama's beautiful team really helped us pull this off. And Kama wants to give you some welcoming remarks from the National Center for Civil and Human Rights.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Michael. First of all, Lambda Legal has been a wonderful partner for us here at the center. First of all, I am Kama Pierce. My pronouns are she and her. And we are so happy to have you here today. On behalf of our CEO, Jill Savitt, and our board and our staff, this is a really important weekend for us at the center. We are so honored to be able to celebrate the 50 years of Lambda Legal, 50 years, y'all. And over 1,000 cases. And Michael, did you say there's 77 going on right now? I mean, we don't make any progress in this country with just marching alone. There are a slew of legal, lawyers, plaintiffs, people behind the scenes in the court system, in the legislature, that are supporting all of those of us that don't have that skill set and pushing the pendulum forward. But we are in a really tough time in this country, as you know. We are under attack. And so we need organizations like Lambda Legal to exist, and the people they partner with. One of my ACLU board members and I are both here, and we're talking to Mike about how we like to also partner together. This is important work. And so tonight, let's celebrate the work that was done 50 plus years, but then let's also use that to motivate us to find the energy, because I'm afraid it might be another 50. And that's okay, because we're in this together. And we have the people in this room, and we have talented people all across this country that understand that if we deny the rights for one group of people, we deny it for all. Yes. So we are so happy that you're here with us. As Michael said, please enjoy our space. You will see history taking place with the exhibit that we have put up last night from our wonderful staff. But also our permanent exhibit, and Timon, who you will hear from, who runs our institute here. This is your place for here as well. So I want you to look at the center. I want you to look at Timon as, you know, your guiding light at the center for all of your concerns, and know that we are in this fight together, and that we are going to continue to not only tell the history, but make sure that we remind everyone that the history is going to give us the energy to push us forward so that we can be the America that we need to be, and we're not there yet. So that said, it is my honor to introduce what I think has become my new bestie, because Ben Garcia is the executive director of the American LGBTQ Museum in New York. And they're opening in 2026. He's in the midst of a big rebuild. You might not know this, but we are about to embark on an expansion here as well. So I'm going to put your number on speed dial as we deal with contractors and building galleries for the next year and a half. So thank you so much for including us in this journey, and thank you for being my new bestie.
Thank you, Kama and Michael, Kevin, everyone here. What an incredible venue. What an amazing first stop for this exhibition once we left New York. I can't think of a better way to launch this nationally than here at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. It says it all. Thank you all so much for being here. A room full of people who work toward justice, who work toward peace, who try to spread kindness in the world. I'd like to take a moment to welcome into this space those who can't be with us, our ancestors, those who are not here because of fear and ignorance, those who taught us, who nurtured us, on whose shoulders we stand, who helped us gain the rights that we enjoy today and will inspire future generations. So let's just take a moment of silence and bring someone in. Museums matter in part because they are a link between ancestral knowledge and wisdom and future generations. Most of us didn't grow up going to museums and seeing the histories of LGBTQ plus people represented. Didn't grow up in schools where that history was taught. And so we're so proud to be here in this museum that is doing some of that reparative and healing work. To be working with Lambda, who for 50 years has worked to ensure that there is a future for rising generations of queer people. At our museum, we aspire to be a place that works in partnership, that works as part of the movement, not just to document the movement, that centers racial, gender, and disability justice while telling queer histories. A place where the connection to our ancestors is real and where queer magic is a strong force. We are going to be opening in 2026 in New York City, but at the same time, we're going to be launching a series of traveling exhibitions like the one you're going to be visiting today, to open around the country so that queer people can go to their local museum and have a chance to see their history reflected in their own communities. We hope you'll visit us in New York, but mainly we hope you'll support those organizations here in Atlanta that choose to partner with us and with other queer history organizations. So thank you to all of you who've been working on behalf of queer history here in Atlanta, on behalf of queer people here in Atlanta, and we're just so grateful and so honored to be your guests. Thank you.
With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Kevin Jennings, who will introduce our panelists. And my brief introduction to Kevin is this. If you have ever heard about a gay-straight alliance, Kevin started the first one. And then he was the leader of GLSEN. And then went on to do a lot of other things within the movement, and then worked for that guy, what was his name? Oh, President Obama as the Assistant Secretary of Education. And actually came to Lambda Legal in 2019 with a museum background as well, and worked and led the Tenement Museum in New York. Kevin is a fierce, kind leader, and I'm really excited to look over and see Kevin with this panel of people that I love and adore to the moon and back. I'm looking at Tim now because, Kama said you're the guiding light, and that is true. And you are surrounded by light with the rest of the panelists tonight. So thank you all for being here. And with that, Kevin.
I have to start with some thank yous as well. First of all, I want to thank my boss for being here, the vice chair of the Lambda Legal National Board of Directors, Fred Smith. Raise your hand, Fred. And I want to echo the thanks that have already been given, but they mean a lot to me personally. Bev, This exhibit was your brainchild. Ben came to me about a year and a half ago and said, why don't we do something for Lambda Legal's 50th? And together we conceived of this traveling exhibit, but it was you that reached out your hand, it was you that showed the initiative, it was you that had the vision. Thank you. And to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. You know, you hear the word intersectionality a lot these days. There are some organizations that actually walk the talk and take the word and put it into practice. This is one of them. And it is so important that we recognize the linkage between all of these issues right now. The same people who are coming for voting rights are the same people who are coming for reproductive rights, are the same people who are coming for LGBTQ plus rights. It's the same people. And we all need to stand together at this moment. So, now, like Tim, I was once a high school history teacher. History teacher, I can't remember. English, okay, we like English teachers too. And I would start my class every year by writing a quote by George Orwell on the board. And that quote was this, it's from the book 1984. Those who control the present control the past. Those who control the past control the future. And what Orwell meant was the version of the past we learn shapes the future we can envision. And this is why our opponents are so desperate to stop the teaching of the truth of America's racial history, to stop LGBTQ plus issues from even being mentioned in schools. They want to erase us, because if we are not present in the past, young people will not be able to envision a different future. So it is so critical that we learn the full and complete history of this country so that people can envision a future inspired by the heroic folks who have resisted the various forms of oppression that have existed on this continent since the arrival of Europeans in 1492. Resistance started on day one, and it has continued for over 500 years. Now, I'm thrilled about this panel, and I'm going to introduce each panelist as I ask them a question. So rather than do 4 bios all at once, I'm going to do one at a time. The first is my friend Jane Morrison, or should I say Judge Jane Morrison, the first out judge in the history of the state of Georgia. But we had her first. Judge Morrison, before she was a judge, was the founding regional director for the Lambda Legal office here in Atlanta back in 1997. So I want to take you back to 1997. And for younger people, I want you to think about the conditions Jane opened that office under. Don't ask, don't tell, had just been enacted. The Defense of Marriage Act had been signed, which banned federal recognition of same-sex marriages. Being gay was still illegal in the state of Georgia, thanks to the Powers versus Hardwick defeat of the Supreme Court in 1986. So 1997, in the middle of that something show, I won't swear, you take over leading the fight in the South. How'd you do it?
Well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the setting of the context for it, because it was a very different time. And I think I was excited. I was just really ramped up to do this. This is why I had become an activist. To be a better activist, I went to law school. To be an activist was something useful to do. I came to Georgia because it was the front lines of gay and lesbian civil rights work. It also has a wonderful history as the front lines of civil rights work generally. And it was just compelling to be here. And it was an honor, a privilege, and a really exciting opportunity. So it was about meeting the challenge where the challenge was. And it was kind of like signing up to go to war. You go to the front lines, you take your little law degree, and you parachute in. So it was why I was here. And it was just exciting to meet new people, to make the connections within the community, and to know that what we were relying on was the power of advocacy. And that's what lawyers are all about. We try to get people to change their minds and to see things in a better light. So it was exciting.
Fast forward 27 years, it's today. If there's something you have learned from the history you helped make in those 27 years here in Atlanta that you wanted to share with the next generation, what might that be?
I think the big piece is to believe in what you are doing, to understand the need to stand up and fight for what you know is right, and to trust that you can make the connections with people that will be sustaining. No one can do this alone. No one can do any type of civil rights work alone. It's about building alliances. It's about supporting one another. It's about showing up for each other. And it's also about being brave and doing what you know needs to be done.
Our next panelist is Vandy Beth Glenn, someone who has made history. I'm sure to everybody in Georgia, you know Vandy Beth's story. Vandy Beth was fired from her job in the Georgia State Assembly, decided not to take it and to sue. And the important thing about this, Vandy Beth, is that when you brought your lawsuit arguing that Title VII prevented people from being fired based on their gender identity, no one had ever won such a lawsuit before, ever in history. You ended up being the first. So what was it like to step forward and take on that fight when no one had ever won it before?
Well, first of all, I'm afraid I have to correct you on a point of law. We didn't bring a Title VII case. It was a 14th Amendment, Section 1983 case. I mean, it's still setting a precedent. Honestly, to be quite frank, more than all that we achieved together, I would have preferred just not to have gotten fired in the first place. I didn't mean that to be a laugh line, but I was so angry when Sewell Brumby, the plaintiff, rather the defendant in our case, fired me. It was just so obviously wrong, and it had barely even crossed my mind that it was possible that anyone could do something like that was so clearly in denial of my basic humanity. And I was angry for myself, but I was also energized by all the people in our community, and my attorney saw a path where we could fight against it and win, and so I was on board. I wanted to see it happen. I wanted to see a better world, and so that's why I signed on. And well, the rest is something.
How did you feel when nearly a decade later, the Supreme Court ruled in the Bostock decision that you could not fire people from their jobs based on their gender identity or sexual orientation, when you had been the first stepping stone in that path?
It was pretty great. We were lobbying for ENDA while my case was still going on. ENDA later became something called the Equality Act, and I got a little disillusioned that either of those bills was ever going to pass. I was pretty sure that if we were going to get the progress that we needed and that we deserved, it was going to have to come through the courts. And so I didn't expect it to happen as early as it did with Bostock, but it was extremely satisfying.
As you know, Tim West is the executive director of the LGBTQ Institute here at the National Center. What you might not know is that he's also an educator, an artist, an activist, someone who has been part of creating change and making history as well. So the title of this exhibit, as we all see behind us, is Queer Justice. What does queer justice mean to you in this moment in 2024?
Here you got me passed out. The mic will be cool. So queer justice for me is about the rather ironic audacity to maintain that LGBTQ folk are just as human as anybody else.
That's right.
Right? And it is ironic that that's something we actually have to insist on. But you know, bodily autonomy isn't quite working for some people in the way they thought. And so we know that they're going to come for trans people. They're going to come for non-binary. This is going to be what we start to hear increasingly over the next few months. And so for me, queer justice is about remembering that young people. I think especially as an educator, I walk through the museum, which hopefully some of you will see, and you see a 19-year-old John Lewis, right? You see the poor little girls, and you're reminded that I'm reminded that Angela Davis was friends with those poor little girls, and that moment of their martyrdom inspired her activism, right? And so what I see is that no civil or human rights movement is possible without the passion and vitality of our young people, and that it's our responsibility to make sure they are educated, that they know their history, so that they can project it to the future. Did people hear most of did people hear most of what I said? Okay, good, because I don't want to have to repeat it because I think I crafted it pretty okay. But yeah, that's why I've insisted on the center really leaning into programs like Youth Belong and our Youth Advocacy Fellows. I want to give a shout out to Xavier Rowling here. This young man buried his father this morning. And so it warms me that on a day when something like that happens, and he was like, I want to be at this exhibit. And that's what queer justice is about. It's about showing up when it's hard, because you know it's the right thing to do and you want to be there. So thank you.
Well, there's a direct line from Jane to our next panelist, Danny Alexander Burke. Danny is the regional program coordinator for Lambda Legal here in Atlanta. Danny has run a LGBTQ+ center at a university and has been an activist pretty much your whole life. So what does, as kind of a representative of the next generation, what does queer justice mean to you today in 2024?
Thank you, Kevin. To me, queer justice means intentional connection and the prioritization of joy. Something I've said in previous spaces is, at this moment, I don't work at Lambda because it's easy or fun. I work here to protect myself and my community. I work here because I need to. I work here because the work that Lambda Legal is doing, I truly believe in. And I think when we talk about this moment where we're seeing more than 500 anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation introduced in 2023, when we are looking at conversations in K-12 education about should LGBTQ people even be in the classroom, whether teaching or as historical figures and topics, when we are talking about healthcare and who deserves access to it and who doesn't, and how should that be managed. These are not just theoretical conversations, these are active things happening in people's lives that are life and death situations in a lot of cases. And that's where I think it's the prioritization of joy. Trans people are not just a battle flag. We are not just here to be the poster issue at this time. There are businesses, there are people, there are livelihoods that need to be supported. So the difference between misinformation and to be quite frank, a Facebook post that is untrue and harmful, and someone speaking out, that is life or death for someone. But also, so is joyless, right? Attending weddings, attending the birth of a child, trans parents have always existed. Making sure that we are also celebrating with one another. And so I think tonight is a testament to recognizing that lived reality that we're in right now, but also we can celebrate with one another. That's not inappropriate. That's a part of this. And so to me, queer justice is knowing where we've come from, but also knowing that we've done this before, and we'll continue to do it. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Some of the giants that are in this room right now, people I greatly admire. I've seen every name tag. I'm the one that emailed all of you. So I knew who was going to be in this room, and I was deeply inspired. So I just want to say thank you for being here, because this is what the future of this movement looks like. It's all of us in rooms together, celebrating one another, and knowing that we can do this, we've done it before, and we'll do it again.
Before I turn it back to Michael and let you free to go see the exhibit, Dan, what you said there at the end, I think, is the most important thing to learn from the 50 years of Lambda Legal. We have done this before, and we can do this again. It has never been easy fighting for equal rights for any group in this country, including LGBTQ plus people. This is an organization, in case you don't know, that when we applied to be a charity, was turned down by the state of New York because they said that we were neither benevolent nor charitable. So we have to sue for our very right to exist. So it's never been easy. It's not easy now. I don't want to close this on a down note, but at January 5th, 125 anti-trans bills have already been introduced this year. Twice the rate at which they were introduced last year. So it's not getting easier, but it was never easy. It was never easy, but we did it anyway. That's the lesson of this history. So Michael, we're going to pass the microphone back to you.
Round of applause to the panel. I'm going to take the mic to Glenn for just a second, but I want to point out something as you were saying this. So all these bills are being introduced. I'm going to use a legal term. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. We have someone in the room that's going to be embarrassed in just a second, because the legal term I'm going to use is badass. Because over in this table over here, Tara Borelli is literally working on a case as we are standing here, and she's totally embarrassed right now. But don't be, because everybody say thank you, Tara. Thank you, Tara. Because she's present here and working on a case right now. So, thank you, Tara. Thank you to the panelists. And then you want to make a quick thing before I play the cruise director to tell us what our next steps are. Please.
Great, thank you so much. Just want to take a moment for 2 shout outs. One is, this is the first time this traveled, and 2 people, one from this organization here, Lance, and my colleague Sue Haley. Raise your hand. Spent 14 hours putting the exhibition together last night, all night, until 7:30 this morning. So, thank you, Lance. Thank you, Sue Haley. And I also wanted to acknowledge the curator of the exhibition, Lara Lima, who is unable to be here because of something that came up last minute with her family. But I know some of her family and friends are here, and the work is wonderful. It speaks for itself.
All right, so now for the moment that you've been waiting for, but just a reminder, what are you going to do tonight? You're going to go meet people that you've never met before. Do you remember your instructions? The awkward piece? Michael told you to do it. You're welcome. So what's going to happen now? I am going to invite Kevin, and I'm going to invite Ben, and I'm going to invite